Beneath the summer sky so wide, where truth and faith would stand, a vision rose with steady.
So far, everybody enjoying the day?
Amen.
I need to give you an idea of where you are. You're on the original site of Plymouth Plantation. This river right behind me is the reason the Pilgrims stayed in Plymouth. They landed on the tip of Cape Cod, all sand, not a great spot for a plantation. So they looked all around in this little boat called a shallop. They found Plymouth and stayed here because of that river. That river gave them three things they had to have. The first, water power. Name of the river is Town Brook. It's 1.5 miles long. But in 1.5 miles, it drops 80 feet. Good place to put a mill. Such a good place. We had 14 mills on the river within 1.5 miles. Keep in mind, however, the Jenny Mill, the mill I ran for 10 years, is the site of the oldest mill in the United States, originally built in 1636. Second thing about our river, it never rained in Plymouth again. The water level will never drop. Our river is spring-fed. We have a constant flow of water coming out of the ground. The ground in Plymouth also has sand in it. When the water comes up through the sand, it is filtered. It does run into the river fresh drinking water. They got drinking water and water power. But you folks are all smart. You know sand's good for filtering, not good for growing corn. We have to fertilize heavily, and the river supplies that. Our fertilizer are fish. We call them herring. Herring live in the ocean, but when they spawn up in our pond. Every spring they migrate by the mill. The Pilgrims take them out of the river, put them in the ground, fertilize, and grow the corn. Oh, by the way, they did go upstream for 6 weeks this spring. Yeah, we had a little over 200,000 fish go by the building. For 6 weeks, you cannot see the bottom of the river. It is solid fish. All the fertilizer, water power, and fresh water you could use, all supplied by one river. Not a bad place to put a plantation, especially if you consider they were 200 miles off course. Kind of a God thing, wouldn't you say? Right over here is Leiden Street, the original site of Plymouth Plantation. That big white house at the beginning is the Leiden House. That house is being preserved by Beth and Jerry Pereira at the Leiden Preservation Group as they preserve historic places in Plymouth to tell the true history of our country. So I just wanted to point that out for you, and yes, thank them for what they do. A wonderful, wonderful group of people. So are we following this covenant thing through the founding of our country? What we're going to do now is talk about the Great Migration. 1630, 10 years after the Pilgrims arrived, a man named John Winthrop came and did that, and I'd like to introduce a friend of mine who does the American Minute on the radio. My friend's name is Bill Federer. Give Bill a hand.
Thank you, Leo and Nancy Martin and the Jenny Museum, and it is a tremendous honor for me to be with you. I like big picture stuff, and so if we go back to the beginning of recorded human history, Sumerian cuneiform on clay tablets in the Mesopotamian Valley, we see the most common form of government in world history is kings, and a king is a glorified gang leader. If you were to get rid of all government, give it a couple weeks and you'll have gangs. And a gang leader with enough power we call a king, or a pharaoh, or a Caesar, Kaiser, Sultan, Tsar. Power wants to concentrate into the hands of one person. They rule through fear because they can ultimately kill you. And it's a hierarchical system. If you're friends with the king, you're more equal. If you're not friends with the king, you're less equal. You're an enemy of the king, you're dead. It's called treason, or you're a slave. Wherever you had the first king on top, you had slaves on the bottom. And as the centuries go on, the kingdoms get bigger. Attila the Hun, Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar, until finally the King of England had the largest empire on planet Earth. The King of England was a globalist. He was a one world government guy with him at the top. The sun never set on the British Empire. And America's founders decided they didn't like one world government guys telling us what to do, so they broke away and flipped it and made the people the king. America is an experiment of a polarity change in the flow of power. Set it top down like a dead pyramid. It's like a living tree where every root and every tiny capillary root sucks in nutrients to keep the tree alive. It's called the covenant form of government. And the Pilgrims and Puritans got their idea from the Bible. What part of the Bible? The first 400 years out of Egypt before Israel got a king. lo and behold, around 1400 BC, you have millions of Israelites come out of Egypt, and for 4 centuries, no king. It's the book of Judges in the Bible, but it's a total anomaly in world history. Millions of people and no king. And it worked because every citizen was taught the law and personally accountable to God to follow it. So there's no king who rules through fear. It's just people, and you have an opportunity to steal, and you're about to get away with it, and then you think God's watching. He wants me to be fair. He's going to hold me accountable. Maybe I should hesitate stealing. And it creates a tiny thing in your head called a conscience. If everybody in the country believes this, you can maintain order with no king. And this system, called the Hebrew Republic, worked for 400 years until the Levite priests went woke. They went rainbow church. I mean, here's Eli, the high priest. His own sons are sleeping with women in the tent of meeting. Another Levite with a silver graven image. Another Levite with a concubine where the law says the Levite should marry a virgin of his own tribe, and the poor concubine's abused by a bunch of sodomites and dies. And by the time you're grossed out, you read this line, every man did that which was right in their own eyes. Why? Because the priests stopped teaching them what was right in the Lord's eyes. Turns into chaos. They ask for a king. Now, why is this story important? The kings of Europe looked to the Bible for their authority, but they looked to the King Saul and after. And the Pilgrims and Puritans looked to the before King Saul part of the Bible. 400 years, millions of people, everybody taught the law. So that's why they taught Hebrew at Harvard. In the 1600s, they gave their commencement address at Harvard in Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. And so in Yale, they still have to this day Hebrew characters on the coat of arms. James Madison graduated from Princeton in 1771. He goes back for an entire year just to study Hebrew. And so this covenant form of government was different than the Anglican hierarchical form of government. And so the king didn't like them. King James says, I will make them conform or I will harry them out of their land. And so we begin to see that was the motivation. If you go back to Europe, you had the Catholic Church, and then Anglicanism broke away, and then Puritans were inside the Anglican Church trying to purify it, and the separatists decided they were going to leave and meet in secret in barns and basements by candlelight, and they have their covenant form of government, and these were the Pilgrims. The king persecuted them, and they fled to Holland and then to America. But if you look at the persecution, 3 of the founders of this separatist movement called Baptists was John Merton, John Smith, and Thomas Helwise. Thomas Helwise is arrested, put in the Newgate prison where he dies. And John Merton is arrested and he dies. And John Smith has a church, and branching off of his church is John Robinson's church, which is the Pilgrim Church. And they would, there was a group of these Pilgrim separatists that sold their property, and we're going to buy a boat, buy passage on a boat to Holland. Holland, or the Netherlands, were 7 provinces that went through a 80-year war of independence from Spain. And during this 80 years, these 7 provinces did not always believe the same thing, but they were give and take, and so they had tolerance of each other. And so the Pilgrims said, let's go to Holland. There's a little tolerance there. And then they end up, Spain threatens to attack, and they come to America. And so a group of these Pilgrim separatists sold their property, and they get on a boat, but before the boat takes off, the captain robs them, turns them over to the police as heretics, and they get put in the prison. Another group of them sell their property and arrange for a Dutch ship to come up the shore, and they would hurry up and get on and sail away. But the Pilgrims show up a day early, and it's wavy, and the kids are getting sick, and the women say, can we wait on the shore? And the Dutch ship finally comes, men are stowing stuff, but the British come over the hill, capture the women and children, and the Dutch captain says, I don't have an army with me, and he sails away with the men. And these women and children get passed from one court in England to another for 2 years. Finally, they say, you didn't do anything wrong, put them on a boat, send them over to Holland, they find other husbands. And then you had John Prine, and the king didn't like these Pilgrim separatists, and one of them brought in and to the star chamber. It was a room in the government with stars on the ceiling, and they would brand you on the face as a heretic and cut off your ear and twist your arm, and then they passed the 5 Mile Act. If you were caught preaching within 5 miles of a town, you're drug off to the star chamber. Remember John Bunyan that wrote Pilgrim's Progress? He spent 12 years in jail because he had an illegal Bible study. And so when these Pilgrims and the Puritans came to America, they set up a covenant form of government. And between 1630 and 1640, 20,000 of these Puritans are coming to America with their covenant forms of government, and they're founding cities. And so Providence, Rhode Island was founded by a church, the First Baptist Church in America. Hartford, Connecticut was founded by a church, the First Congregational Church. Churches founding cities. And of course, the Greek name for city is polis. And so politics is the business of the city. And since it's the church founding the city, everybody in church is involved in politics. Right? I mean, and so you see that this entire century, they had one building in town called the Meeting House. As Jerry Newcomb pointed out, Jerry and Beth Pereira's house, at Lot 1, was where the Pilgrim Meeting House was. That's where their first governor, John Carter, met with Chief Massasoit, and they came up with a peace. By the way, did you know Chief Massasoit later got sick? And the Pilgrim Edward Winslow doctored him, and he recovered. Now, the fine print is if you doctor an Indian chief and he dies, you die. So it was pretty serious. Now, can I give you something that you may not know? 1588 is the Spanish Armada trying to invade England, and they're stopped by the Dutch and the English. And the Dutch and English have pirates, privateers, buccaneers, and they would raid Spanish gold for decades until 1604. King James does a treaty with the Spanish, and part of it is he will no longer let the pirates bring their gold back to England to try to shut down on this piracy of the Spanish ships. And so now you have a bunch of unemployed pirates, and where do they go? The Barbary Coast. And so you have these Dutch and English pirates going to the Barbary Coast and becoming pirates for the Muslims. And some of them even convert, like Murad the Younger, and they raid English villages. And so in 1625, you have these Muslim pirates coming up the Thames River, and they raid England. They carry away 1,000 English and sell them in Morocco. And then they capture an entire Irish village, the stolen village of Baltimore, Ireland. And they bring them all to Morocco, sell them into slavery. And so in 1625, the Pilgrims had saved up 800 pounds of beaver skins and dried fish from this river over here. And they sent it back to England for trade. And William Bradford writes in the History of the Plymouth Settlement that they made it happily across the ocean, and they were well within the English Channel when a Turkish man of war captured one of the ships, took it to Morocco, and sold the crew into slavery. Thus, all our hopes of bringing back goods to America was dashed. And so this is something that we're facing today, right? But we have to understand that this covenant form of government that we have inherited in America, it's where we get rights from God, we're fair to our neighbor because we're accountable to God. Did you know the word federal is Latin for covenant? We have a covenant form of government in America where we, the people, get to rule ourselves without a king. And the word citizen is Latin, that comes from the Greek word polites, which means co-king, co-ruler, co-sovereign, right? And John Calvin, they struggled with the Bible verse, Romans 13, let everyone be subject to the governing authority. Who's the governing authority in a monarchy? The king. Who's the governing authority in a republic? We are, right? And so this is, as a matter of fact, we have the Bartons over there, and they're experts on this. So the idea is that we, each one of you, is a co-king. We pledge allegiance to the flag like we did this morning, and to the republic for which it stands. A republic is where the people are king, ruling through representatives. So we need to look back at the Pilgrims and the Puritans and this great Puritan migration where you had entire churches leaving and settling cities. Barnstable, Massachusetts was founded by, I think, John Wheelwright, and John Lothrop founded like Exeter, New Hampshire, and these different pastors and churches are founding cities. And now we have inherited that. And Proverbs, I think it's 33:11, says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. Now it's our turn to pass the baton. So the most important thing is to bring people to Christ, but the second most important thing is to preserve the freedom to do the most important thing. Because if we don't get involved, they're going to teach our kids there is no God, there's no rights from a creator. The government transitions from protecting your rights to granting your rights, and what the government giveth, the government can taketh awayeth. And then you have 1,400 years of Islam conquering Christian areas. And you look at Europe, went from a Judeo-Christian Europe with 1,000 years of Catholic cathedrals, Protestant Reformation, and Jewish neighborhoods, to a secular Europe with the French Revolution, free sex, anything goes, and now it's turning into an Islamic Europe with Muhammad being the #1 name for newborns. So lo and behold, the whole secular free sex agenda is simply a transition phase to cut ties with our Judeo-Christian past, and it's quickly co-opted by an Islamic future. And here we are in the middle. Most of Europe, I hate to say, may have been past the turning point, but we still have a chance to be that nation, that city on a hill for their future generations, that they can have the freedom that we enjoyed. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Beneath the summer sky so wide, where truth and faith would stand, a vision rose with steady hearts to serve both God and land. Through whispered